Zine making simplified. Boom. It's that easy. Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Brie and I love zines. And today I want to talk about how you can simplify your zine making process, or just zine making in general. It's really not that hard. And if you're hearing this word zine and you have no idea what it is, a zine is like a handmade magazine that you can talk about anything you want inside of it. But unlike traditional magazines, zines are created as a form of expression rather than making a bunch of money. Okay, so like I said, this video is zine making simplified. So I'm going to talk about things that you need and things that you don't need when you're making a zine. Let's start off with the 3 things that you absolutely don't need to make a zine, but there's some misinformation out there where people really think that you need these things. Number 1 is you don't need a fancy printer. You really don't. You guys, I make tons of zines. If you're familiar with me and my work, you know that I have my own online shop. I do wholesale with people, which means that they buy my zines in bulk so they could sell them in their shops. I do tons of zine trades. I just make a lot of zines, okay? And I have 2 janky ass printers over here that I use that I'll show you. You don't need a fancy printer to make your zines, okay? They're meant to be messy. They're meant to be imperfect. They're all about expressing yourself, so the canvas doesn't really matter. The 2 printers that I use are the Canon Pixma MG3620, and this printer is really good. The only thing that I am annoyed about it with is that it takes cartridges, which are kind of expensive, and they run out super quick. So I'm only able to print about like 50 to 75 times until it starts running out of ink, and I have to buy more. But if you want a really nice, crisp photo-like, you know, high photo quality prints, this is a really good one that you can use for cheap. So I got this printer at Target for about 70 bucks. It was on sale at the time. Not that expensive, but like I said, you won't be able to print a ton of zines on this thing, but you will be able to get a less amount of prints, but with higher quality. My second printer that I use is called an Epson EcoTank ET3760. And what I love about this printer is that it uses ink pods instead of cartridges. So you fill up the ink manually instead of putting a cartridge in there, so it lasts a lot longer. So the trade-off for using this one is that I could get so many prints. Like seriously guys, I probably use this for about 3 or 4 months before I have to change the ink. It lasts so long. But the con to this one is that it's not as great of a print as when I use my Canon Pixma. So the prints are not terrible. They're actually really great, but if you compare this print to the print that I get on the Canon, it's just not the same. But I do highly recommend this if you print a lot of zines. This is what I use. And by the way, I use this for the zines that I sell in my shop, the zines that I do wholesale. You know, the quality difference is doesn't change based on how I sell it or how I distribute it. It's all the same. Zines are not meant to be this professional, high quality produced thing. If that were the case, they would just be magazines, you know? So don't get too caught up in trying to make sure you have the best print for your zine, and just make the zine, you know? And if you do want a higher quality print, but you don't want to invest in a printer, then you could definitely check out your local library. My local library, I'm able to print 20 free copies a day with a library card. So definitely look into those resources. Or you could also go to like FedEx Office, Office Depot. Those are print places that I use often. Also, I would highly suggest if you're doing booklets, like you're making zines that are not just like the 1-pager ones, but you're actually making like booklet style of zines, I would definitely check out Mix and Print. I've used them before and I have a small little review in this video here. Just skip the timestamps to where I talk about Mixam, and their print quality was really, really good and affordable pricing. So I would definitely check them out if you want alternative ways to print that don't involve printing at home, because not everybody has a printer at home. But if you do, your printer is totally fine and valid. I know that a lot of people ask those questions about, well, if I sell my zine to a shop, like doing wholesale, will they be annoyed that it's not the best quality? They really shouldn't be if they understand the nature of zines. I mean, don't give them something that's illegible and that you can't read and that it's just like hideous looking in terms of like you could barely read it. Don't do that. Take some quality and care with how you print and bind your zines. But what I'm saying is, like, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. If you have a little bit of ink smudges on it, that's great. That's a zine. If it has those little lines in it, you know, because your printer messed up and it has little streaks of like weird ink in it, that's fine. That's a zine. It's still a zine. So don't get wrapped up in trying to make it look beautifully perfect, and just make the thing. Alright, and the second thing you absolutely don't need to make a zine, but a lot of people seem to think that you do, is Photoshop. Photoshop is very expensive, depending on if you're a student or not, or if you have different discount codes you could use for Adobe Photoshop. I personally do not own Photoshop. I do have an alternative called Procreate that I use on my iPad sometimes, so if you feel like you can afford that, I would definitely recommend you doing that if you like to make your zines digitally. But like I said, you don't need those things, because if you can't afford an iPad, or you can't afford the type of computer that can use Procreate or any of those apps, I don't want it to deter you from thinking you can't make a zine, because you totally can. You do not need digital tools to make a zine. Don't wait on making your zine because you're waiting until you have Photoshop or Procreate or any of those things. If you can have Photoshop and you can afford that, great, use it, you know, but don't make that an excuse to not make your zine because you want it to look a certain way. You can make your zine all by hand, and I have a video right here that teaches you step by step all the materials that you need, the supplies that you need, how to print it, how to bind it. I teach you all of that in this video here, so don't think that you need any digital tools to make your zine. I always say it's nice if you have them. I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong way to do it, but just know that if you can't afford those things, it's okay. If you do have access to a computer and you want to try your hand at making zines digitally, there are two websites I want to suggest that are free to use and you can make your zines on here. One is Electric Zine Maker. This is a really cool website that is offered for free that you can make all sorts of zines on here. They have different templates that you can use. They teach you how to fold your zine, and then you could print it right away and it's ready to use immediately. The second one is a newer one. It's called zinesforever.com, and this is also a free website that you can use to create your zines on. The only thing, I looked into it, I read all of the the disclaimers and facts on websites, and the only thing about zinesforever.com that I would be mindful of is that anything that you create on there will now be the property of the website. So zinesforever.com can use the zines that you create on this website for anything they want. They could use it for commercial use, or they could use it to promote their website or anything like that, and they don't need your permission to do it, because when you agree to use the website, you're agreeing to those terms. So if you're in favor of protecting your work from being used without getting payment for it or anything like that, I would definitely read the facts section of this website very carefully, because there are a lot of certain rules on this website where they can use your work any way they see fit without consulting you about it or without giving you any royalties for it. So I would be mindful of that. But other than that, it seems a little bit more user-friendly than Electric Zine Maker. I've used Electric Zine Maker, and to be quite honest with you, just the interface and the way that it's laid out, it was a little bit overstimulating for me. It's a great website and a lot of people use it to make their zines, but from my personal standpoint, I just didn't enjoy having to use it. It wasn't very user-friendly to me. Whereas zinesforever.com is very simple, straight to the point. It's easier for me to understand, so it's much more user-friendly for someone like me that could get a little bit overwhelmed with too much information at once. So I would definitely compare and contrast those two websites, look at it. They're free to use, so if you don't have the things like Photoshop or an iPad that has Procreate on it or anything like that, I would definitely check out these websites to try making your zine. Alright, and that brings us into the third thing that you don't need, and it kind of touches on the second thing that you don't need, which is you don't need an iPad, okay? I know that I said that I use Procreate on my iPad sometimes, and I know that a lot of people that use Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop use iPads, but I know that those things are expensive, and that sometimes people are not able to buy one refurbished or used or whatever. That's okay. You don't need an iPad to make a zine, okay? And I tell you this in almost all of my videos, but if you're not familiar with them, definitely check out this playlist that talks about everything you need to know about zines. And I reiterate over and over and over again that you don't need anything expensive. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need stuff that costs hundreds of dollars to make a zine. That defeats the whole purpose of making a zine, okay? Because zines are based on expressing yourself in a way that's cheap, accessible, and DIY. So if that means that you make it all by hand and then you distribute it by making copies that are all black and white because that's easier for you to afford, that's okay. And that's highly encouraged in the zine community and with zine making in general. I don't want you to think that you need anything like that to be able to make a zine. You can use those other resources that I told you about, like the websites where you can create free zines, or you can make them all analog. You can make a tactile, handmade, DIY, messy, raw zine and then just make copies of it. I think that it's very important that we allow everything in the zine community, okay? So I'm not saying that because you use an iPad to make your zines, you're not making a real zine. I think we should totally totally take advantage of the extra tools that we do have today to be able to make our zines. But just because someone else can't have access to that or can't afford that doesn't mean that they're making zines that are lesser. Everything's welcome here, all right? I just want everybody to know that. Making a zine is about whatever is accessible to you. You have an iPad and that's accessible to you? Great, use the iPad. But if you don't, this is what I'm trying to like really drill into your head. If you don't, that's totally fine. That's the main way to make a zine is by hand. So don't think that you need an iPad or Procreate or Photoshop to make your creations. Since we covered all of the three, or not all of but the top 3 things that you absolutely don't need to make a zine, I'm going to transition over to the things that you do need. And these are things based off of what makes my zine making easier for me and that I think most people can get their hands on, can afford, or can find for cheap. So the number one thing I think every zine maker needs is a bone folder. Okay, I know if you're familiar with my work, and like I keep saying, if you know me and you've seen my videos, you know that I'm a slave to the bone folder. So I think everyone needs this in order to make your zines really flat and crisp on the folds. A question I get all the time is, how do I make my zines fold so nicely? How do they fold without the paper creeping over each other and looking all messy and clunky and weird? Well, I use a bone folder to flatten my folds. This really helps with the final result of your zine and making it look a little bit more polished and a little bit more put together. If you want your zine to look a little bit on the rougher side, that's totally fine, dude. But if you want it to look a little bit more neater, so it's not all like sliding over each other and stuff, a bone folder is great, and zine makers use bone folders all the time. If you don't have access to a bone folder, you could just use something with a flat edge, like the side of your scissors. You can use the side of a ruler, you can use your credit card, your ID card, even you can use a penny, because the sides of a penny are really smooth. And I actually have a video where I show how I make really flat folds with a penny, because I just want to prove to you guys that you can use anything to make the folds really flat on your zine. You don't necessarily have to buy a bone folder, but if you would like one, they're pretty cheap, and I bought mine for about $5 at Michael's the Arts and Crafts store. So I would highly suggest you going to any local craft store that is closest to you, and you'll be able to find one in there. Okay, and the second thing that I think all zine makers need, it's essential, are stationery supplies. So if you saw my tutorial on how to make a zine all by hand without digital tools, you saw the part where I talk about the supplies that I use in order to create my zines. So some of the supplies that are necessary for you to do this are things like scissors, glue, washi tape, magazine clippings, paper, stickers, markers, pens. I keep saying this, but if you watch any of my videos, you know that I advocate for finding things that are cheap or even free. So if you need help finding stationery supplies to make your zines, I definitely suggest you going to the dollar store. That's where I find most of my stickers and stuff are really cheap. They even sell magazines and coloring books and stuff like that that you can rip out the pages and use them to collage in your zine. I also really like the store Daiso, which is a Japanese dollar store that they have here where I live in California. You'll definitely have to look up if they have it in your state or in your country. It's just like a dollar store, but a lot of the stuff that they offer is really cute and colorful. So if you're into stuff like that, that's where I get most of my tape and stickers. And then I also get really cool paper there. So they have different design paper, they have grid paper, they have notebooks, they have cardstock. So I would definitely check out all the aisles that have stationery at Daiso, because that's where I find a lot of my zine supplies. Okay, and the third thing that you need as a and the third thing that you need as a zine maker is just your community. It's that simple. You need to get involved, you need to use your voice, and you need to reach out to others in order to help you along your creative journey. Don't be shy to ask people for advice or tips or tricks or to do a trade. All of that is very important in the zine community because we uplift each other and it helps the zine ecosystem go around and around. If you want to learn more about how you can get involved in your community, just watch any of my videos, but definitely the latest one I posted about how to be a zine maker. I talk a lot about how the community is important because we do trades. So if you ever want to get feedback or you want critiques on your work, I highly suggest setting up a trade with another zine maker that you admire and then asking them their opinion and then also letting them know what you think of their work too. I always say that I don't think it's beneficial for anyone that you create in a vacuum. I think it's very important to share your work. I know that may be hard because some of the stuff you share in your zines may be vulnerable. Think about it like this. If a zine is just to express yourself, before anyone ever sees it or reads it, it's already served its purpose. So when you made the zine, you were able to get something out, you were able to use it in a cathartic cathartic, therapeutic way to express yourself, to get your hands moving, to release some of that excess energy that you may have pent up inside of you, you know? So when you create your zine, it's serving that purpose for you. It's already helping you. The next part is to share it. But if you decide you don't want to, that's okay, because it already did something for you. But if you want to take it that one step further and maybe inspire someone else, I definitely suggest getting involved in your community. If you want to learn how you can find Zine Fest near you, check out a link in the description where I will list a Google Doc that someone made where it lists different states and countries that are holding Zine Fest. Also, check out this video that I made where it's talking about Zine Fest in general. So it talks about etiquette, so how you should attend a Zine Fest as a vendor. So that means someone that is vending their zines or selling their zines. And then also tips on how you can become a patron of a Zine Fest. So that means someone that is going to a Zine Fest to buy and trade zines. There is a lot of etiquette that I think people ignore or maybe aren't aware of when you go to Zine Fest and craft markets. So I left some tips in those videos, or the videos that I'll list here, that help you better navigate a Zine Fest or a craft fair and how to interact with the people whose zines that you enjoy. Zine making simplified. Boom. It's that easy. I know. It's sometimes people can get overwhelmed when they hear what a zine is, just at the idea that a zine could be about anything they want. But it's really that simple. It could be about something really silly, or it could be something really deep and raw. It could be literally anything. I know, I keep saying that, but it's true. I want you guys to think of zines as something that's simple, so you realize that you can do it too. Anybody can do it, okay? And I know that it's hard to get over the fact that you compare your work to others, but I don't see any quality difference between a zine that I make and anyone else makes. I think they're all on the same level. There's no one above you or below you in zine making in terms of quality of your work or the content of your work. Yeah, some people are new and they come into the community later than someone like me that has been in it, or even viewers that I have that have been making zines back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I believe that we're all on the same level because it's all about communicating what you want to communicate. It's all about expressing yourself. So what's different from me expressing myself from you expressing yourself? You know, it's all the same thing. So don't get caught up in thinking, oh man, their zine is so much better than mine, or I like that, or whatever. Use that instead of feeling down on yourself for not being able to make something that you think looks really cool or you admire. Use that as fuel to inspire you in your own work. That's what I do. If I see a really cool zine that I think is awesome, I don't ever think like, oh man, they make zines that are better than me. I get fired up. I get inspired because it's like, I haven't seen that before. That's really interesting. That's really cool. This person must have so much personality because their zine does. And then that inspires me to, how can I implement the stuff that I like in their zine in my own way? I just think it's a space for all of us to be able to be ourselves. So I hope you guys took away something from this video. If you did, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If there are some things that you want to suggest too, leave a comment, okay? I'm gonna go now, but thank you guys for watching, and until next time, bye.